This is about possibility. Thursday, and I'm in my Elizabeth studio, and joining me today from Baltimore, Maryland, is Lisa Simeone, a writer, political activist, and most famously radio host. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Cynthia. Happy to be here.
Well, we're going to talk about how some prominent Democrats, namely Rahm Emanuel and most recently Pete Buttigieg, have finally admitted that the Democratic Party's dogma when it comes to gender is way out of touch with most voters and what they believe, actually what they know is true, and that is that um, sex is not assigned at birth and can't be changed, that gender affirming care for kids is quackery, and that gender identity is not a social justice cause, but rather an ideology that really runs roughshod on the rights of women and is dangerous to children. But before we do that, I'm hoping you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your professional journey, and what brings your renowned voice to the cause against gender ideology.
Well, as you said in your introduction, my career has been primarily in public radio for the past 40 years, and I'm not fully retired now. I still do some freelance stuff for radio, but I would say mostly retired, semi-retired. And I've been thinking about this gender woo, this baloney. Can I use cuss words on this thing?
Yes,
Can I
please
say
do.
bullshit? Okay, I've been thinking about this gender bullshit really for 20 years, but 20 years ago it wasn't, it was such a tiny little part of the culture. It wasn't saturating the culture, which is what it's doing now. So 20 years ago, when I was starting to get uncomfortable about this and thinking, well, what do you mean you feel like a woman? You're a man. That doesn't even make any sense. How can you feel like a woman? You're not. So how do you know what it feels like to be a woman? So I was thinking along those lines. But it was just like, so if a guy wants to prance around in a skirt and lipstick, he looks ridiculous, but whatever. I don't care. Okay. But in the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, it's gotten crazy. It's gotten batshit insane with men trying to take over women's heretofore safe single sex spaces. So it's not just about men prancing around in skirts or wearing what they want. Men are saying, I have a right to come into your gym locker room and see you naked and take a shower with you. Men are saying, guess what? I'm transgender. I'm a woman. So when I've been convicted of a crime and I go to jail, I should be put in the women's prison. Or they're saying, I want to play on the women's or girls softball team or volleyball, whatever it is. This stuff is nuts. So when this started happening, really in earnest, I would say, again in the past 5 to 10 years, and I think it's really ramped up in the 5 years. I just decided I can't take this anymore. I have to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do, except I discovered Diag, thank heavens, Democrats for an Informed Approach to Gender. So I've teamed up with them, as I know you have. But I'm thinking, what? The world has gone crazy. And if I had to trace it, we can talk obviously about this. There's a lot of factors at play, and I think there are a lot of origin stories. But if I had to point to one thing that was really kind of spelled the death knell for women and children is when Biden, when he was president, came out and said, trans rights are the civil rights issue of our time. And I thought, oh my God, no, it's not the civil rights issue of our time. That is a false framing. But people who think of themselves as good people, and we all like to think of ourselves as good people, that's what they heard. They heard civil rights. Oh, I'm for civil rights. I'm a good person. Therefore, I have to be in favor of this thing without thinking it through, without thinking, what does it mean to say, I support transgender rights? I'm not suggesting we discriminate against these people in any way. Obviously, they already have all the same rights that we have. They can live where they want, love whom they want, marry whom they want, dress how they want, talk how they want, present themselves how they want. But they're trying to trample on the rights of women and children, women and girls especially, but also boys. And that I'm not putting up with. I mean, that's bullshit, and I'm not putting up with that.
And you're
That's a
no
long answer.
well,
That's
you
like
and
100.
you didn't even mention the fact that you have an illustrative career. The host of NPR shows, Soundprint. You're the host of World Opera. You're a
Yes,
writer,
yes.
a journalist. You really have a very, very impressive resume. Excuse me, and you're not new to political activism, uh, because you actually lost a job, for engaging, for using your voice, and so I'm so glad that you've re-entered the arena and taken on this issue. In July 21st, you mentioned Diag. You and I had the chance to, and I was very grateful, thank you, uh, to talk, to do an X space interview. And the news that day, just, a couple of weeks ago, was that Rahm Emanuel, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned, the former mayor of Chicago, Obama's chief of staff, he held other prominent positions in Democratic Party circles. He was on the Megyn Kelly show and was asked point blank, do you believe men can be women? And he said no. And she asked him, well, do you believe kids should be given puberty blockers under the age of 18? And he said no. Do you believe men should be in women's prisons? He said no. I mean, that was quite shocking. And he obviously, I think, is a presidential contender for the next
Yep.
election. What did that mean to you?
Well, first of all, it is what was shocking, I guess, two things. Number one, that just saying common sense things, just expressing facts about life, about biology, about reality, that in itself is considered some courageous act. Like that is, it's staggering, okay? And especially when he ended by saying, when Megyn Kelly asked him, why can't other Democrats say this? Why can't they just say it? He said, well, now I'm going into the witness protection program. Okay, that was cute, but it's also, it's very disheartening. It's very depressing that just stating common sense facts, biological facts, is an act of bravery, or it's something that, oh my God, I have to protect
Uh-oh.
myself
Your sound
enough
is not
because
so
I've
great at
said
the moment.
these things. But
Well,
I'm still glad he said them because they needed to be said.
I'm glad he said
And
them
for
too.
somebody, evident if something's going wrong with the feed. But anyway, oh, there we're back again. Okay. Someone had to get the ball rolling, and he did. Now, if other Democrats come on, well, let's put it this way: brave people like Jonah Wheeler in New Hampshire have already been saying this, but and other a very few politicians here and there. But in general, the Democratic Party is completely bonkers and has been completely captured by this ridiculous ideology. So I'm glad he did that. I'm glad he did that. Now let's see what happens from there. And by the way, he was great to say those things. One thing that I would like to point out that he did not agree to, that I think is important, he said that these medical decisions to surgically or chemically alter children should be left up to the parents. All I will say to that is no, because if you are chopping off healthy body parts or interfering with children's hormones and endocrine systems, that is unethical. It's medically unethical. So I think we need to come out and say that, and we need to say no. But, I'll take what I can get at this point. He started somewhere.
Well, and as you said, just stating the truth that men can't be women was seen as such a courageous act. But in my mind, the lie that trans women are women is not a whole lot different than the Republican lies about, Obama's birth, the birther lies about Obama, or the lies that the 2020 election was stolen by massive voter fraud. It seems like both parties are guilty of spreading these kinds of conspiracy theories. Dissent within the Democratic Party is impossible. So it was interesting to see Rahm Emanuel kind of step outside. Do you think it moves the goalposts for the upcoming midterm elections for other
Mm,
Democrats who might step in the race? Do you think it gives them some room to speak truth to the power of the Democratic Party?
I hope it does. I guess I have a wait and see attitude. That's how I look at it. I'll believe it when I see it because more people need to come out and say this and have the guts to just speak, as you said, the truth. This is, I don't know how angry I can get about this because I get so furious about it, but to tell the truth. A man cannot become a woman cannot become a man. You cannot magically morph into the opposite sex. Whatever your feelings are, fine, have your feelings, feel away, do your thing, feel whatever you want, but don't try to compel me and everybody else to feel the same things along with you. And if the Democrats can't come out and stand up for women, Well, let's put it this way: they give with one hand and they take away with the other, because obviously the Democrats have stood up for reproductive autonomy, for women's bodily rights, okay, for abortion. We know that the Democrats have done that, the Republicans haven't. So on the one hand, the Democrats have done good things for women, but then they're taking away with the other hand by insisting that men can become women, that men can invade women's spaces, that boys can compete on girls' teams and take away girls' honors and opportunities, and also injure them, as we know. Peyton McNabb, a volleyball player, got seriously injured, a traumatic brain injury from a boy on the opposing team who spiked a ball and hit her in the head so hard it knocked her out. How can anyone say that that's okay? Here's my favorite. Oh, well, that just only happened once. Oh, then I guess it's okay. So Peyton McNabb, just one person got a traumatic brain injury. Who cares? I mean, that is such a specious argument. First of all, it's false, because we know thousands of boys are taking away opportunities from girls, literally thousands. And sorry, Democrats, if you don't want to believe it, that's your problem. You're wrong, because this is happening. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, even if it were only one or two or 10 or 20 or 50, does that make it okay? Then it's okay that only that many people are getting abused and harmed by boys on girls' teams. It's a specious argument. I won't put up with it. How did I get onto that? You asked me if it would open a door, to other Democrats. And so circling back to that, I'm going to wait and see. I certainly hope so.
Well, most recently, Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary under President Obama and the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, sat down with NPR's Steve Inskeep for a kind of a wide-ranging interview that suggests to me he's a presidential contender for the Democratic Party. And during the course of that interview, he was asked about the gender issue, the transgender issue more specifically. And he said that his approach is, starts with compassion. And that he said Democrats have to take everyone seriously. And that suggested to me that there might be an opening for actually women to have a say in all of this. He went on to say that, as you probably saw the interview, that he admits that parents have a case when it comes to having concerns about fairness in sports. But then he kind of hedged and said, chess is different than weightlifting. Weightlifting is different from volleyball. Middle school is different from the Olympics. So we shouldn't be grandstanding on this issue as politicians. We should let the states and communities and school boards decide. So I'm curious, what was your reaction to the Buttigieg interview?
I heard that interview with Steve Inskeep, a former colleague of mine. I mean, I obviously have worked with a lot of these people at NPR because I worked at NPR for years. We can get to that later, how NPR has abdicated its responsibility to do responsible journalism, in my opinion. I did hear that interview, and I thought Pete Buttigieg was trying to have it both ways. I thought it was very wishy-washy and namby-pamby because he's afraid to come out and say the truth, and he's trying to appease all sides. Well, you can't appease all sides in this. And actually, there really are only, I think there are two sides, but you can't appease everybody, because appeasing men who say they're women is wrong. And you need to come out and say that. And to imply that, or to come out and say outright, oh, I think parents have a reason to be concerned, that's not enough. It's like, I mean, it's what I said earlier about being medically unethical. Just saying parents have a right to be concerned, it's more than that. Parents have a right not to have their children mutilated. Parents have a right not to have their children castrated. Parents have a right to say, no, I will not call you. Your name is Jane. It's not James. It's not Jim. I'm not going to call you a boy. You're a girl. And I'm sorry you're in psychological distress. Let's get you help for that. Let's get you some mental health help. But that's not what Pete Buttigieg said. He's trying to play all sides. I thought it was rather, like I said, namby-pamby, wishy-washy. And frankly, I wanted to ask him, would you leave Title IX up to the states and local councils and communities?
Right.
Title IX is a federal law, right? I mean, you basically should throw Title IX out the window if you think that every little municipality and county and city can make up its own mind, or every sports organization can make up its own mind about whether to allow boys and girls to play the same sports in the same team. Title IX exists for a reason, to protect women and girls. And Pete Buttigieg clearly didn't say that.
Well, I thought it was really weak tea too, because what he said, oh, we have to empower, schools and these organizations to make the right decisions. It's like, well, how? I mean, isn't the only way to empower them is to change the law? The law being now in Maine, for instance, that gender identity is a protected status, and that's what enables the teams to allow boys to play on girls' sports. But I'm curious, why do you think Steve Inskeep didn't just ask Pete Buttigieg the straightforward question that Megyn Kelly asked Rahm Emanuel? Pete, do you believe men can be women? I mean, I know
Okay,
you don't know the answer, but
again,
why do you think?
right. I think, well, I know what's going on at NPR. That much I know. I know that NPR has been totally captured by this ideology, as has most of the mainstream media. And NPR is about as mainstream as it gets. It's as mainstream as CNN or any of those or New York Times. They've all been captured. NPR, I have to be careful. I have to think of how much I can say because I do know people who still work there and I know what those people have told me, and I don't want to get people in trouble. But let's just say it has been totally captured by this ideology. It will not challenge it. Um, the journalists there, they know which side their bread is buttered on. They're not, nobody's going to come out. No journalist at NPR is going to come out and do what Megyn Kelly did and say, do you think a man can become a woman? I've
That's so
heard interviews.
disappointing.
Oh, oh, unless something dramatically changes, but I can tell you right now, management going all the way up to the top is not going to allow those kind of questions. Now, you're going to get a lot of comments after this, I'm sure. How dare she? And yeah, we're independent and we're independent journalists and blah, 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 frickin' blah. I know what's going on over there. They are not allowed to ask those questions and they don't have to be told explicitly. I mean, this is the thing. There wasn't a meeting where everybody sat down and said, now you're not allowed to ask this question. It's filtered down from on high, right? We've all been in workplaces. We know what the zeitgeist is of any given workplace where we've worked. We know what's allowed and what's not allowed. No one has to say it explicitly, but everybody got the message. Everybody has gotten the message in myriad ways at NPR. So
What's the
nobody,
danger? What's the danger to asking that question? Can men be women to a presidential candidate? Like, what's the fallout from NPR or an organization like NPR? Like, for listeners who might not understand the politics of media, explain why are they so complicit?
They think that they are on quote unquote the right side of history. They think that this is, as Biden put it, the greatest civil rights issue of our age. They think they're being kind. This is, these buzzwords, be kind. They think they're being kind. They think they're being compassionate. They think they're being inclusive and tolerant and sensitive. All the buzzwords, gather them up, gather the whole basket of buzzwords, put them together, shake them up, and that's what NPR wants to be seen to be that way. And they to act like they're standing up for the downtrodden. That's, by the way, that's thunder. I don't know if you're hearing it, but a thunderstorm is coming. So if you hear this in the background, that's what's going on. They think they're standing up for the downtrodden. That's how they want to think about themselves, and they're not. They're just aiding and abetting this bonkers ideology. I've heard, I don't know how much we want to get into because NPR has done so many interviews about trans this and trans that and trans this and that. And I have heard interviews with my own ears where the contempt dripping from the hosts' voices, and I'm not going to name them, contempt for somebody like a politician from a southern state, for example, a Republican politician. Well, I'm very liberal. I'm not like crazy about the Republicans, but you should respect these people when they're your interlocutors in an interview. So this politician, I forget from which state, was saying something very simple. Testosterone confers greater advantages and strength on boys, on males. Males have more testosterone than females. I mean, this is just a biological fact. The person, I won't even say male or female, the person who is interviewing him, the contempt dripping from the voice, and as if what this guy was saying was crazy, like who ever heard of such a thing that testosterone, confers advantages on males? I was like screaming at the radio in the kitchen because I just thought, how dare you treat a guest in this way? I mean, if you at least want to bring up some evidence, I could go on and on.
Well, especially
It's
because a
just
majority of the country like feels the same way, like believes the fact that men are different than women and that there's an unfair advantage to allowing boys to play on girls' sports. And what's interesting to me is that in that Buttigieg interview, uh, he said to Steve Inskeep, he was, worried that, or at least observing that Donald Trump had mostly succeeded in becoming an autocrat and that authoritarianism under the Trump regime has changed the behavior of companies and of universities and of broadcasters. And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, the authoritarianism under the woke agenda has certainly changed the behavior of corporations and broadcasters and universities with all the DEI, the trans tsunami, the pronoun orthodoxy. I mean, I don't know what style of yeah,
Authoritarian.
authoritarianism makes you more scared, like the Trump style
Right.
or the woke style. They're
Well,
both
they're
bad.
both bad. I mean, they're both, I'm not ever going to offend Trump or his authoritarianism. I think he's assaulting the country. It's an assault on our very being, on our democracy, on our country. But which is also why it infuriates me that the left has handed him and handed the radical right a gift on a silver platter over and over and over again. They've handed them this. So when Trump came out with his executive order, which is correct, saying that men are men and boys are boys and girls are girls and women are women,
There's
that's
two
sex, not
sexes.
gender. There's two sexes with a simple statement. This is correct. Why did the Democrats give this to him? This guy is a class A misogynist. Why are you giving a class A misogynist the talking points to protect women? I mean, it is mind-boggling that these people don't see it. And what I'm afraid of is that because Trump has done this one right thing, right? He's done this correct thing. But the mere fact that the automatic knee-jerk reaction to that from liberals and from Democrats is we oppose it. Automatically, we oppose it, we oppose it. He could say the sky is blue and they're going to say we oppose it. And I'm afraid it's going to cause people to dig in their heels even deeper instead of looking at this issue, thinking about it more deeply, thinking it through, thinking, is it really fair that men compete with women or men go into women's prisons? Is this fair? Is it fair that children are getting their bodies altered? Is this a good idea? Instead of thinking along those lines, all they can think is Trump is evil. We have to oppose everything Trump does, everything Trump does. That's not helpful. And I don't want either type of authoritarianism. I don't want someone compelling my speech, which good luck trying to do that. But but then I don't work at NPR anymore. If I still worked there, I'm sure I'd be in a pickle, or I'd get fired for not using the proper pronouns. But the left doesn't have a right to compel my speech or tell me how to live or tell me what to say, and neither does the right. The right wing and the left wing. I'm sorry, but at this point, they're two sides of the same coin because they're approaching authoritarianism. They're converging, but they're just approaching it from different directions. And I'm going to speak out about it. I don't care who doesn't like it. I don't care who comes up with some fantasy about, oh, have you turned to be a Trumper? Have you turned to a right winger? No, I just have a brain and I'm not afraid to use it. And I don't care what you say about me.
And you have a
But,
vote.
and well, I have a vote, which I'm withholding. I know you and I have talked about this in the past. I have been voting for 50 years in every single election. I've taken seriously my duty as a citizen, responsible citizen, to vote. I won't vote for the MAGA crowd. I won't vote for any Trumpers, but I will not vote at all. I will withhold my vote from all of my representatives, federal, state, and local. And I've told them all this. I've written to them all. I've told them why, because of this issue. I'm not gonna put up with it. I know in Maryland it doesn't really matter because it's a blue state, and I live in Baltimore, which is a blue city. So my little puny vote is not going to make a difference to them. But it's all I have. It's all I have, and I'm going to withhold it. I'm not going to vote for them.
Who do you think is the tail wagging the dog of the Democratic Party? I mean, we see organizations like the NCAA, the University of Pennsylvania, the Olympic committees. They're changing, right? They're changing probably because of the threats from the Trump administration. But do you think organizations like Planned Parenthood and some of the left-leaning
Ugh.
organizations are running things and will not change, though you're going to double down? Or what's your thought about who's in charge of the Democratic agenda when it comes to this gender ideology?
That's a good question. And I think so far it looks to me, again, I'm going to wait and see. So far it looks to me like they're doubling down. The ones who are acquiescing are doing so only because they're afraid of losing funding. So Trump's executive order has scared them, not because they're taking a principled stance, not because they've awakened to the horror of this ideology, not because they're doing the right thing, but they're afraid of losing money. And so I'm afraid that if a Democrat does get in office in the future, he or she can just, with a stroke of the pen, issue a new executive order and just take away what Trump did with that executive order. I don't know. It's so, like I said earlier, the culture's so saturated with this. I don't know if there's any one tail wagging the dog. There are a lot of them, and unless people wake up, unless constituents tell their representatives the kinds of things that you and I have been talking about and tell them, I'll withhold my vote unless you wake up. I don't know if things are going to change. Maybe temporarily. That's what I'm afraid of, that temporarily they'll change and then they'll go right back to being crazy town if a Democrat gets into office again in the presidency.
Well, it's just mind-boggling to me that, a couple of years ago, the Democratic, catechism was you gotta believe women, right? In the Me Too movement, believe women.
Yeah, yep,
Now we find our place,
yeah.
where they don't even believe in the existence, the biological reality of women. Do you have
Right.
any hope that women are gonna organize around this issue? Because a lot of women think that they are being inclusive, that they are being kind, all the things that you just said. I don't know what it's gonna
Yeah.
take to get through. Are you hopeful that women are gonna slowly come around to acknowledge the existential threat that gender ideology presents?
It's hard to say because I know that I've convinced in my circle of friends and acquaintances, I have persuaded some people who simply hadn't thought about it before. They just thought, yeah, trans, cool, whatever, who cares? Which I understand, I understand that. But when I brought these things up, I have piqued, that's the new terminology, I've piqued some people. They now understand what's at stake and they are on our side. Other people, I've lost friendships over this. They've just said, I don't want to speak to you anymore. And you've become a crazy Trumper or whatever the hell they said. I don't want to talk to you and you're not my friend anymore. Okay, fine. So I don't, I just don't know how many. Well, let me take that back. You and I know that there are millions of women who are fighting this fight as we are because we are in touch with them. We've been in touch with them. We read their writings all over the non-mainstream media, I should say. So we know they're out there. The question is, are more women going to come along? Are they going to wake up? And men too. I mean, I'm happy to have
Exactly, yeah.
male allies. My husband's an ally. He understands what's at stake here. And but I don't know because this impulse to this business about being kind and Cynthia, this kills me because it seems to me that we're the ones being compassionate. We're the ones saying, live your life, do what you want, let your freak flag fly, but protect children, protect women, protect these categories. Do not harm children medically. Do not mess with their brains, with their heads. We're the ones being compassionate. They're the ones trying to push people onto this lifelong path of medicalization and taking hormones and messing with their bodies. How is that compassionate? We're the ones being compassionate here. We should own
And
it.
compassionate and also silenced. It's really, it's heartbreaking to me. I mean, and that this reality for some women, they can't even identify themselves when speaking about this issue because it's caused such a rift in their family or because they have family members who have been taken prisoner by this cult of gender ideology. I have women in an organization that, we have to maintain confidentiality. We had a potluck dinner, a potluck lunch. It was so fun. And I posted a picture, didn't identify people, but I had to take it down because some are afraid
Yep.
that if their employers find out
Yes.
that they are actually part of a group that believes women are real, they'll be retaliated against. So it's frightening, and
It's like,
it's
it's how did we get to this point?
I
I mean,
know
and how is this liberal? This is what I want to say to people if
exactly.
you're still listening at this point. How do you think that's liberal? How is that liberal to have people who are afraid to speak their minds because they're going to be shunned, they're going to be ostracized, they're going to lose their jobs for saying a woman is a woman and she deserves safe, single sex spaces? And no, a man is not a woman and can't become one. You're afraid to lose your job over that? Don't you think there's something fundamentally wrong, my fellow liberals? Is there not something wrong with that? And I know too, I mean, I won't mention the organizations, but I was shocked when I found out the board of directors that these were pseudonyms. These are pseudonyms, a lot of these people.
I
They're
know.
not allowed to come out with their own names. It's mind-blowing to me. And again, it's not Republicans doing this. And I'm not saying Republicans aren't authoritarian because they are. But it's not Republicans who are doing this. It's Democrats and so-called liberals, self-styled liberals who are profoundly illiberal, who are censoring these people and who are threatening them and who are doxing them and who are outing them. This is not Republicans doing this, guys. You need to own it. You need to look in a mirror and say, how did we get to this point? How is this helping women? How is this standing up for women's rights? I've pulled my donations from Planned Parenthood and Amnesty International and God, a bunch of other organizations. I've given tens of thousands of dollars in my life to these organizations. No more. I won't give them a penny, and I've told them why. Because they're not fighting for women. They pretend they are, but if when you're spending more money on trans publicity, what's the no publicity? I forget what the term is. Anyway, they're promoting trans ideology, Planned Parenthood, for example. I forget what the statistic is, but I read it last week. They're spending more millions on that than they are on healthcare for women in rural communities who need it. So if you're closing down clinics because you're spending so much money on promoting trans ideology, maybe you ought to look at your mission statement. Maybe you ought to do something different, you know?
Yeah, I'm on the fence when it comes to some of the Trump initiatives to defund a lot of these nonprofits that, on their face say that they're doing good for society, but really what they're doing is just trying to accumulate political power at the expense of women and kids. Like, it really offends me that Planned Parenthood has connected uh, abortion and gender affirming care as if those two things are the same, and
Right.
it really bothers me that Planned Parenthood is profiting off of the medicalization of kids. I mean, every story we read about the defunding of Planned Parenthood because of mean, bad old Donald Trump says Planned Parenthood provides cancer screenings and health care. What they don't say is that they're making a bucket of money on handing out hormones to
Mm-hmm.
minors who have to just show up for a 30-minute Zoom interview, no prescription
Exactly.
necessary. And, the beginning of taking these hormones is the gateway drug. It's the entry level into the cult that'll then turn into cross-sex hormones and then possibly surgery. It's disgusting to me. So I'm curious, do you have an opinion about the defunding of, say, Planned Parenthood or NPR by the Trump administration?
I don't think that this sledgehammer approach is any good that the Trump administration is doing. I mean, no, I don't think in general that this is a good way to go about instituting policy. Of course not. However, again, these people need to look in the mirror and they need to ask, how did we get to this point? It's not just big bad meanie Trump. He is a big bad meanie. He's a piece of shit. I can't stand him. Yes, he is, but that's not what that's not what is only going that's not only what's going on here. These organizations need to look at what did we do. I'm sorry, but they do. Here's we're going to get this shit. Oh, you're blaming the victim. No, I'm blaming people with power and organizations with power, which Planned Parenthood has power and NPR has power, and they have a lot of money, both those organizations. They need to look at themselves and what have they done that's helped these sledgehammer policies come into play. That's what I'm saying. And you mentioned about the 30-minute interview. I hope people a lot of people listening to us, Cynthia, have no idea that that's exactly what's going on. Literally, I've heard this so many times. That's a right-wing talking point. I cannot
I
believe anybody's
know.
handing out the hormones like candy. Oh, yes, they are. Planned Parenthood. We've talked to women and parents whose children have gone to Planned Parenthood. 30-minute interview. You think you're really a boy or you think you're really a girl. Blah, blah, blah. 30 minutes later, here are the hormones. Start. That happens within 30 minutes. This is not some long, drawn out, years long assessment, psychological assessment. This
Right.
is what's happening. So
And a
people need
cynic
to,
and a cynic could say, and the reason it's happening is because it's covered by insurance, and after that 30-minute interview, they can send a claim off and get paid by the government. I mean,
it's
it's crazy.
stunning that people in this country who need honest to God health care and can't
Right.
afford it, who need medical care and they can't afford it, they can't get it. But these deluded people who think they're the opposite sex are you and I, taxpayers are paying for this. Insurance is paying for this. I can't get I don't have a lot of prescriptions, but I have to pay out of pocket, right? I have to pay out of pocket. You probably have to pay out of pocket. I mean, and yet these kids walk into a Planned Parenthood, which is supposed to be looking out for women and girls, and they're just handed these hormones like. Don't people understand how powerful hormones are?
Oh, I
Is this?
know.
I'm a lay person. I'm not a physician, but my God, even I know that hormones are some of the most powerful substances in the human body. Is this so hard to understand? I, I it's
Yeah.
just it's stunning. I have to raise this. I'm sorry. We have a thunderstorm and it's getting so dark. I look like I'm in night here. Let me raise the blinds.
Well, I'm almost done with you. I guess just what I just was thinking about is that the Democrats were so upset, I think, rightfully perhaps, when the Supreme Court pushed the abortion issue to the states, when the Supreme Court said, this is an issue that should be decided by the states. But then you have candidates like Pete Buttigieg who says, well, the issue of, whether women are real is not something that politicians in Washington should be deciding. They should be pushed to the states. I think it comes down to we need a federal law reinforced, and that is Title IX and these other civil rights laws. And are there any candidates on the horizon that you see that
Well,
might carry this water for your average voter who just believes the truth, the facts that men can't be women, that gender affirming care is quackery, and that gender identity is a dangerous ideology?
I again, I'm gonna wait and see because
Yeah.
I have to adopt that attitude because right now there's nobody. Right now, I see nobody I would vote for. I see nobody willing to step out of line except Rahm Emanuel. I've never been a fan of his. That's a whole nother subject. It doesn't matter. But at least he came out and said this. But if nobody picks up that gauntlet and runs with it, if lots of Democrats don't come on board, I don't see how we're going to get out of this pickle. Meaning, I don't see how Democrats are going to win, except because they might win if the economy tanks. Yes, then in the midterms, I think the Democrats will gain seats, and historically, anyway, as we know, when one party's in the White House. At the next midterms, it's the other party that usually is in the ascendance. So that's probably going to happen because historically that's what happens. But if the economy tanks, sure, more Democrats will come in. If the economy is still robust, I don't see how enough Democrats are going to gain a majority in Congress when they insist on this ridiculous. It's more than it's damaging. It's destructive. This
It's a lie.
destructive. It's a lie. It's a quasi-religious dogma. I mean, you want to believe your religion? God bless you, so to speak. Do it. Believe what you want. I don't care. But you don't have the right to compel other people to believe that as well. And that's what this cult, this dogma is saying that a man can be a man, a woman, sorry, that a man can become a woman, that a woman can become a man, and that children can be medically altered because they're psychologically confused.
Because they were
They need
born in the
help.
wrong body. I mean,
Yeah,
that
what
is
does
the
that
most.
even mean? What I mean, hello, Cynthia. You know how many times I'm mistaken for you name the ethnicity, everything except Scandinavian, right? Everything in the southern, the global south, basically, everything, including black. Maybe I should just say that I'm black. Who are you to say that I'm not? Hello. I identify as that. I mean, what is this? What is this bullshit? I was born in the wrong body. What does that even mean? This is the body you have. This is what it is. Who are you to say it's wrong? Who's anybody to say it's wrong? It's profoundly cruel to tell a child you were born in the wrong body and your body is wrong. There's something wrong with it. That is so cruel.
And
That is the opposite.
there's a medical procedure that might offer you some relief that is life altering. Oh, so Lisa, there's an organization that we referred to at the beginning, at the top of the show, Diag. Just before we go, tell us a little bit more about the organization, what it stands for, and how people could get involved.
DIAG stands for Democrats for an Informed Approach to Gender. Okay, it's not the most catchy title, but that's what it is. Democrats, Democrats for an Informed Approach to Gender. And they don't believe in the medicalization of children. They don't believe in the gender woo, the ideology that men can morph into women or women can morph into men. They don't believe that boys should be competing on girls' sports teams or men should be competing on women's sports teams. They believe in the fundamental sex-based rights of men and women and boys and girls. And they want to see those sex-based rights protected. And they want to see single sex spaces preserved so that you cannot come into my locker room swinging your dick around just because you claim you're a woman when you're really a man. And that men should not be put in women's prisons. I know we've mentioned this a couple of times, but people still don't believe it. And it's going on all over the country. Men are being housed with women in women's prisons. Anyway, DIAG, Democrats for an Informed Approach to Gender, opposes all these things. And I hope that people will go online and join.
Well, Lisa Simeone, thank you so much for joining the show. Before we let you go, is there any final thoughts or words that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, don't be afraid to stand up and speak the truth. Who's going to do it? If we don't do it, who's going to do it? And I have complete sympathy for people who can't do it because of their jobs. Hey, we all have to make a living. And I totally understand. If you can't speak up at work, I get it. But the rest of us who are in a position to be able to speak up, we need to do that. And we need to keep pushing our representatives to listen to us.
Well, Lisa Simeone, again, thank you so much. And hope to get you back on the show sometime soon.
Okay, bye.
Take care.